Now, to introduce our guest speaker is club member Kathy Gibson, classification Retired Business Consultants and Services. Kathy?
Thanks, President Beth. I have the honor of introducing today's speaker, so I'm going to invite him to come up. Come on up, Kai. Kai Peterson is going to address us, but I got to tell you what you need to know before you hear from him. Kai is actually the son of a Rotarian and a Lions Club member. He was born in Kitwe, Zambia, and educated in Denmark, Zimbabwe, and Scotland. And he nearly joined Rotary back in the UK in the early 1990s, but he got busy with work. But you fast forward to 2008, I think 2008, right? And he joined Bellevue Breakfast Rotary Club. Kai's affinity, though, for Rotary started when he learned about our End Polio Now campaign. He knew about this disease because his mother had had it as a child. She was one of the lucky ones, though, because she was able to recover her ability to walk. And yet, even today, she suffers some post-polio syndrome as she ages. Kai's classification is software engineer. His vocation has spanned a multitude of industries, including mining, insurance, capital markets, asset management, and private banking. He is now a software entrepreneur involved with startups. His current venture is AstrumU. It's his 7th in 2 decades. I think Kai is a Renaissance man. He has interests in politics. Just ask him sometime about his one-on-one debate with Margaret Thatcher for 15 minutes, where they both came away and considered it a draw. He's an avid reader. The book on his book stand these days is The Mountain by Leif Whitaker. And he has a varied taste in music that goes from classics all the way to modern pop. I forced him to pick his favorite, and it's The Police. Kai has pursued many sports over the years: rugby, mountain marathons, field hockey, swimming, scuba diving, and cricket. His lifelong passion has been mountaineering. From early climbs in the Kapkis of Africa to the bigger mountains in Scotland and beyond, including many of the classic routes right here in the North Cascades of Washington State, all of the 14,000-foot peaks in California, and 2 of the 7 summits. So please join me in welcoming the lead climber on our District 5030 rope team next year, Governor-elect Kai.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm glad to see you. We're able to keep all of those other updates from the past. It's awesome. Thank you for your support on that. For those of you who thought I was actually the district governor, Kai Peterson, the good news is I'm not. She's sitting right there, and she'll be able to address your club in the future. If you're disappointed, I'm sure refunds will be available. I also wanted to very quickly acknowledge the Seattle 4 team, particularly President Beth, for having me here. Ken for keeping me on track and doing all the organizing behind the scenes, and Caroline Babanek for making sure that I actually had the presentations ready to rock and roll. So I appreciate all of that. I'm going to talk about the value of Rotary membership, and I'm going to try and use it in the context of analogy related to coral reefs. And you kind of sit there and you go, well, what are you talking about? Coral reefs, Rotary membership, and its value. It goes back to a story I heard many years ago when I was at the Benaroya Hall. I don't know if any of you have attended those National Geographic presentations. They're awesome if you haven't, but I recommend you do. And one of them was on preserving coral reefs around the world. And there is this idea that if you create these coral reef sanctuaries, and there's, I believe, 7 of them today, there are all these wonderful benefits that you can get from it. Examples for coral reefs today. I mean, you know, if you think about it, they are essentially representing over 800 species that actually build the reef itself. And that's excluding the microbes and the fungi. So 91% of the estimated 32% of all named marine species also live within those coral reefs. What makes it exciting is that there's a level of diversity that exists within the reefs. And that diversity is what actually helps the reefs survive, succeed, and ultimately create a lot of the ecosystem that you can see and appreciate. But it also benefits over 1 billion people in the world. And this is where the linkage between this presentation at Benaroya Hall connected with me in terms of the value of Rotary. If you think about it, those sanctuary reefs that exist today, the 7 of them, because they've been protected and they've allowed the biodiversity to exist and grow and develop, it's now generated 30% spillover to support the communities that are fishing or need the food or the economy that comes from those reefs. That's incredible. How does that tie back to the value of Rotary? If I can go to the next slide. I'll get to that. But first of all, the question we have to ask ourselves is our coral reef, i.e. our district and our clubs, is it struggling? You just heard Nicole and John up here talking about how do we re-engage our membership? How do we create value behind Rotary? How do we get people to come back into Rotary? And we've struggled. We've spoken about COVID. We now have to deal with inflation and the impact that that's going to have. And finally, the war in Ukraine has also had some uncertainty created that creates a sort of dissonance in people's minds about, where should they be focusing their energies. Next slide. And you look at it in terms of the impact it has on Rotary, resulting in this decline in engagement. And this is engagement, by the way. This is in our membership. The good news is our membership in district seems to be moving back up in the right direction. But without that engagement, we're going to continue to see a declining impact in our work in the communities. We're going to lack that real engagement that we want from members, the excitement, the fellowship, and all of the other things that come from being involved in service above self. And finally, struggling to attract that new audience to our organization. If we shrink, our relevance becomes less. And that is unfortunate because it does have a ripple effect. In the same way that you see a coral reef, as it shrinks, the ripple effect to its supporting communities and the value that it offers to those communities becomes less. If we go to the next slide. So that's why I asked the question. And one of the things I think we should be doing at district is asking these hard questions. It's part of leadership. We should ask ourselves, is 50/30 a coral reef in decline? I don't necessarily believe that. I think that we are seeing membership trends moving up and in the right direction. I also think that we have an opportunity, despite the demographics that we see there, I think we should be actually more 50/50 in terms of gender, for example. In terms of our aging demographic, there's an opportunity for us to encourage and bring in younger people and take advantage of their ideas, their creativity, and find a way to engage them so they can become the support force for the future. But that requires us to adapt to embracing new ideas, diversity, and ultimately this concept of new clubs. Our existing clubs, the formula works for them, but it may not be an appeal for others who want to come and enjoy Rotary. They may have their own approaches, their own ideas. Human trafficking is a great example of that, Virginia. But there are others. We've got the climate. We've got also, we're now looking at a veterans club. Again, new ecosystems of opportunity, new coral reefs that we can create that will help us engage and bring more people into the organization. We also need to innovate. We have to change. We have to find ways to use new technology, new approaches, new ways of communicating, new ways of really finding out how we can reach out to that wider audience. And fundamentally, it's about the clubs. Clubs like yourselves have to become the new reefs, the reefs that actually create that abundance that other communities can take hold of. And therefore, I think if we have, within District 50/30, a focus in these 3 areas, we can actually create that healthy coral ecosystem. But it requires all of us to play a part. And a great example of that, John and Nicole just now indicated, bring one. Find somebody out there. Bring more than one if you can. There's nothing to be embarrassed about by being a Rotarian. We have some great stories to tell, and we should be able to tell those stories and engage and bring other people in as a result of that. Next slide, please. So, there's an old adage that I found out about, which I kind of like, which is when you discover you're riding a dead horse, the best strategy is to dismount it. We all find change difficult to embrace. I know that. I can tell you, I've been in the change management game for a long time. People don't like change. We get comfortable, but actually change is what really makes us better and more successful. And so you've probably seen some of these alternative strategies. Buying a stronger whip to make the dead horse move, changing the riders, appointing a committee to study the horse, lowering our standards so that the dead horse can be included, reclassifying dead horses as living impaired. I can go on, but the point I think is made. Are you, today, are you able to see those dead horses? I would advocate that you probably can, but do you have the courage to do something about it? Next slide, please. And this is where I want to bring in more optimism. I brought you down now. I've been a little bit of a Debbie Downer. I appreciate that. But now it's time to sort of bring you up. If you look at the statistics out there, people are looking for meaning. They want to make an impact. One thing COVID has actually shown us is that our lives, when we've just been focused on work, have been out of balance. And so questions are coming up. What are employees looking for when they sort of reviewed how their lives changed as a result of pandemic? They all want to start making an impact. They all are looking for meaning and purpose, and they want to be able to do something that is more than just the job. And I think Rotary is that philanthropy in a box. It is that opportunity for a lot of people to re-engage with us and to re-engage around the values that they now sorely feel is missing in their lives. Go to the next slide. So the reason I raise that is I think we've been drawing in information but starving for wisdom. Think about that. And the funny thing is, we already have the wisdom and the legacy of Rotary. If you look, Rotary over the 100+ years that it's been in existence has constantly changed, constantly evolved, constantly found ways to make a difference. Sometimes we're a little slow. I accept that. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't miss on the opportunity that faces us all today as members. We have that opportunity to really, really engage and make Rotary valuable again by talking about it, by engaging with our community, and creating that healthy coral reef system, our clubs, and then using that to drive other engagement areas. So if I go to the next slide, the best advice, as I said earlier, Paul Harris, he saw this, he recognized it. He talks about Rotary adapting. He talks about this is a changing world. We must be prepared to change with it. The story of Rotary will have to be written again and again. And I underscore that point, again and again. We will change now and we will change again, because that is the nature of a healthy ecosystem, a healthy coral ecosystem. We go to the next slide, please. So I think 50/30 as a district really is the heart of the coral reef ecosystem. And I see our clubs all around working and building and growing. We're at the heart of Washington State, economically, technically, and in terms of the Rotary legacy. This club is a great example of that. You used to be the largest Rotary club in the world, and there's no reason why you cannot be the largest Rotary club in the world. You've got a great story, a rich legacy, and it's an opportunity for you to re-engage and find that value that drove you to that point in the first place. Things that have spun out of this club. I can talk about just the most recent, the malaria project. The first super project in the world, thanks to the work that was done by Seattle 4. There are many other examples. My own club being one, for example. I believe you sponsored Bellevue Breakfast Rotary all those years ago, so I thank you and appreciate that. We should use these opportunities to, through the district, change and bring life to clubs and ecosystems so that beyond our district, we can show the value of Rotary and help others see the value and really broadcast that out there. I kind of look at Rotary in what I call M3. It's mission, membership, and money. If you take care of the mission and you get people excited about the mission and you engage people on the mission, chances are the membership will come. And if the membership comes, don't worry about the money. And finally, if we can get our clubs to a place where they are healthy, excited, and really important about the engagement around value of membership, there's no reason why we won't have a healthy ecosystem again. If we go to the next slide. So how do we get there? As I mentioned, we can elevate our value by accelerating our growth. Again, the call to action. Bring one, find more than one. Talk to them, be excited about Rotary, tell them about your projects. There's so many things that we can talk about that will really, really excite people, particularly now that they're looking for a new sort of dimension to their lives, something where they can add value, give back to the community. Expanding our reach, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Evolving our core capabilities. And what that means is, we're already evolving them, by the way. I believe this is a hybrid meeting. We've got technology to the wazoo at the back there. Most of us are using iPhones. Most of us are communicating through Facebook or other social media challenges, whether that's LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, you name them. The point is that we have ways of reaching people and connecting with people that we couldn't have envisaged 20 years ago. We have to adapt around that. And that's where I think leveraging technology as a servant makes a big difference. We can also expand our reach by really telling our story. And I mean really telling our story. Branding it and really helping people understand where we make a difference and why we make that difference. Go to the next slide. So here you go. You're the first club, by the way, to see the next 3-year strategy for District 5030. You'll see in there that we've tried to put it into one page so that we can share it with everybody. There's a lot of information, but essentially it captures what we've spoken about, this idea of how do we accelerate our growth, how do we expand our reach, more importantly, how do we evolve our core capabilities. And we see that in 5 areas. Expanding our brand, and part of that's developing an outreach plan to increase our involvement with the community across diverse demographics, for example. Engaging our community by expanding stories like this idea of Rotary Heroes and community fundraising events. Growing our membership by increasing engagement, defining the value, really talking to the value of Rotary. Embracing our vocational legacy. We've forgotten that we all, somewhere in our journey, came from that professional background. And we should reach back out to our business community, re-engage our business community. I mentioned this earlier, philanthropy in a box. There's no reason why we can't work with businesses to help them engage their employees by offering them a one-stop shop through Rotary and secure the sponsorship and the support and ultimately regain some of that excited membership from those various organizations. And then finally, transform by innovating, leveraging technology as a servant. I'll keep banging my desk on that. I've been in technology for over 30 years. When I started, we were clerical administrators. Now, you've got so many different differentiations around technologists and what they do and what they can do. It's pretty impressive how fast that's grown up. Next slide, please. But this is the question we all ask ourselves, and I know it's been a hot topic of debate within the district over the last 2 to 3 years. Embracing an audience, and I've added this, beyond with dignity and respect. Diversity is a fact. Differences make each person unique, and that's a wonderful thing. Inclusion is a behavior. We need to go beyond diversity alone to become consciously inclusive, where curiosity about differences is encouraged and inclusion is a mutual responsibility. This is how I think we can really take advantage of the rich collection of diverse talents that exist in our district and that we can take into membership within Rotary and really evolve. Is it challenging? Absolutely. Can it be emotional? Very. But we're all works in progress. And I've always said to my team, if you break something, fix it cheerfully. So let's go into this world from a place of good intent and recognize that we're not always going to get it right. But let's fix it cheerfully. Let's support each other. Because fundamentally, it is really about treating people with dignity and respect while enabling them to make an impact. If we go to the next slide, I recognize that we're on a journey of 1,000 miles and it begins with the first step. And here I'm going to be a little cheeky. Here I'm going to actually promote District Governor Kai Peterson's upcoming programs because I think they're calls to action that we can take advantage of right now. Next slide, please. So for all of you who can find a woman in a district who's willing to join Rotary, bring them in before the 1st of October. And we guarantee, right, we guarantee that you and that lady will get to meet Jennifer Jones. And so you've got that between May the 1st and September the 30th of 2022. I think that's kind of exciting. That's a really cool call to action. Let's get it done. Secondly, next slide, sorry. We have a program which is coming up through August, so the cost is $199 through August 25th. So it's a call to action here. But basically, there's a reception, dinner, keynote address from RI President Jennifer Jones, malaria program, a scale update, and foundation giving. And what this is there's an opportunity here for those of you who are already donors to the foundation. If you increase your donation, and I believe it's become a Paul Harris for the first time, or you become a major sponsor, et cetera, there's an opportunity at this event to also meet with Jennifer Jones afterwards. And I think it's just also going to be a really wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate the foundation of the work that it does. And on that note, I know I have my time limit, and I've hit it, I believe, and I'm open to questions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for being here, Kai. It's awesome to see you. Thank you for your encouragement. This was something I saw in the bottom right corner of your slide. The Innovation Studio, that sounds exciting. What's that?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. The idea is that we have a lot of projects that we do at the district level, and very similar to a concept that I had the good fortune to work with was we created this Innovation Studio in Seattle. And the idea is that you bring entrepreneurs together, you create ideas, and then you let them go feral and they live and die on their own. But you incubate them initially to give them a good chance. And we're doing that today already. We have the district projects, for example, Music Men Minds, and Harvest Against Hunger, I believe, is another good example of that. But there comes a point where we should let them go out and be sustainable. And actually that fits in with the Rotary mission. Incubate, get them up and running, have them so that they're at a point where they've got that sustainability, and then allow them to go and grow beyond the reef. So that's what the Innovation Studio idea is.
I have not a question, but I wanted to reinforce something that you said earlier about engaging businesses and their employees. And I have personal experience in that when I produced the 2018 Special Olympics USA Games, and we would go to corporate partners and offer up benefits. And one of the most requested benefit was, how do we engage our employees? Because they are asking us, what are you doing in the community? How can we participate? How can we make a difference in the community? And our volunteer program for Special Olympics through the corporate partners was overwhelming. We only needed 8,000 to 10,000 volunteers, and through the Greater Seattle region, we recruited 15,000. So that need is there, and it's a great opportunity to connect Rotary to our business community and their employees as members.
Absolutely agree with you. And we've had some success in other areas as well. I can talk to what we did at Bellevue Breakfast, where we do the All In for Autism 5-10K run every year. 50% of that is now corporate sponsors. And in fact, the current president, Tom Leonardis of Bellevue Breakfast Rotary, is doing that outreach. He's asking us to go back to our sponsors and say, would you like to participate in some of the activities we do as a club? I think that's a very simple thing to do, and there's your philanthropy in a box.
Thank you, Kai, for the great presentation. Great to see you again.
Likewise.
As you know, over the years, we've done a lot of starting of new clubs, Magnolia, these different clubs that some have really thrived and some have sort of stabilized. What are your thoughts regarding merging clubs? It's a little like corporate America, where, that we got 7 or 8 clubs out there that don't have the admin help, don't have the focus, don't have the real drive to do something as a big club, so they kind of stabilize here. Mm-hmm. So you bring 3 or 4 clubs together into one club?
I think, so here's my advice, having done M&A as well. Make sure you get the culture right. Because if you merge, and this was taught to me by Bob Davis, who was the founder of Lycos, and one of the amazing things he taught us was, whenever we do an acquisition, the first thing we look at is culture, and if the culture is not a fit, we're not doing the deal. And he stood by that, and that's one of the reasons why he was able to, over a 3-year period, make 28 acquisitions to build the Lycos network, which at the time was, I think it made #1 in search and then was acquired and became a $12.5 billion business. I think the same happens with Rotary. If you're going to merge, I think there's value in exploring that conversation, but it's really important to make sure that your culture aligns as a club and that you see value in bringing that alignment together and then taking advantage of all of the sort of optimizations and the administration benefits that come from a larger club.
Kai, quick question from the Zoom. Tell us more about Jennifer Jones's visit.
Well, I'm going to hand that microphone over to Kai Peterson because she is probably much better suited at answering that than I am.
Yes, so we are very fortunate to have the first woman president of Rotary International. She will be joining us in our district on October 7th. There will be a large foundation gala that evening. Affordable, $199. Registration will be in this upcoming newsletter, so look for that. And then if, like Kai said, bring in a woman, ask your women to be new members, and the new woman member and the sponsor will be recognized at a very private reception. It's invitation only to meet Jennifer Jones. And then depending on your foundation giving, you may have an opportunity to grace the stage and be thanked by Jennifer personally for your foundation giving, and all of that will be in the newsletter coming up. But very exciting that we are having the first woman president. I was able to have lunch with her. She was in town for the malaria project. I said, "How are you doing?" And this was 2 weeks ago. She left a week ago last Monday, left for India, and she said, "I will not sleep in my own bed in Canada until the 22nd of December." So think about her life, and I said, I just offer you great empathy. I wasn't sure what else I could say, so thank you. Look for you all to be there.
Jeff Borick, past president thanks for being with us today. One of the things we tried to do aggressively was to get Amazon to participate more actively. They're a great local company. They dominate, obviously, Class A office space in downtown Seattle. It's not a well-kept secret that Bellevue is going to be HQ2, regardless of what the other Washington thinks. Do you have any thoughts about trying to get them much more involved with us and also other tech companies? Thank you.
Good question. So with Amazon, I agree with you. When we first engaged with Amazon, I'm going to go from some of the experiences that I've had. They were just check writers, and you'd go to somebody that you knew and they had a budget set aside and they would just write the check. That for us was great, but what we also need to host our event was volunteers to come out, participants, registered runners, etc., so that you can sort of magnify the impact of the run. And so it was in fact Girish Bhatti, who became president of the Bellevue Breakfast Rotary Club, but he was working at Amazon, and I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, I know you're in Amazon. Can you put out a bulletin on your postings in there? Can you connect with some people? Can you try and build a team? And so he became my inside man. He knew we had the checks, and he also knew who the person was on the social committee that was organizing the community affairs. And so he worked as our inside man, and that was actually hugely beneficial. We had participation, we had Amazon showing up, and I think that's the way to do it. And in fact, we had another person who went into the Google campus and just sat there at lunch and basically handed out flyers and spoke to people at Google saying, "Hey, you know what Rotary does? Do you want to be a part of it?" And I think that's what we have to do. It's almost like grassroots campaigning. I go back to my days when I was knocking on doors, asking for votes. You can put leaflets through the door, but nobody's going to read it. You go knock on the door and somebody opens it and you engage in a conversation. Whether they vote for you or not, you've made an impact. And that's what we need to get to. It's getting back to those basics.
Thanks very much. It looks like the Pedersen name has a bit of a lock on the district governorship. Is that right? Kai, your club and you have been strong supporters of the malaria projects in the copper belt in Zambia, and I think there may be a personal connection there. Could you share that?
There is. My mother, so my family, my brother, my father, and I, we coasted through Africa catching nothing. Africa is a country where you grow up, and as you're growing up, you walk out the front door, something's out there to kill you. It's just a fact of life. It's a virus mainly, but other things as well. And in my mother's case, she got polio, and then later in her life, in her 30s, she got malaria as well. And we were in the copper belt at that time, so malaria speaks to me for the obvious reasons, and that's why I'm so supportive of the campaign that you've been leading.
I have one last question. I suspect that most people still think of this Rotary Club as an old man's group. How do you get through that?
Well,
I know, well, I mean, I can see this group.
yeah, I think
But the rest of the
best
community
way-
can't see this group.
No, but you know what? We have people come and see us at our clubs, right? The more that you go out and reach to other clubs, the more you talk to other people, the more you engage, the more they'll see that there's a sea change going on within Seattle 4. I look in the audience right now, and to be honest with you, I'm super happy to see the diversity. I don't consider this an old man's group, and I know that some amazing ideas and innovations have originated from Seattle 4. And I will be the first to tell you that for a healthy District 5030, we need a really strong Seattle 4. And that's just important.
Kai, thank you for that. Such great strategies for us to consider, and I especially appreciate the reminder that we are tasked with being a leader in the district, and that's our role. So again, we need to step up. So, but Kai, I want to say thank you again, and in recognition of your generosity of time today, Seattle 4 has contributed to Harvest Against Hunger, which is a Rotary District 5030 project. It's also a nonprofit agency that provides healthy meal components to food banks. So 600 servings of healthy produce have been given in your name. David and Ken, thank you for fielding questions from our members. Our club also greatly benefits from the sponsorship of several members, and I'd like to express my gratitude to our gold sponsors, Liz Powell and Bob Alexander. Thank you. And for our tech support, Live Oak AV. Thank you.